So to return to this part of the meeting, let me hand over to Guru, who is the founder and director of IT for Change, for a few initial reflections before we open it up. Guru,
Thank you,
over
sir.
to you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Sajita, for having me as a co-moderator in this very interesting talk from Dr. Lim. And I think, of course, I won't even attempt to summarize what he said because he covered a wide range of issues. So I just maybe talk of two or three ideas that I found provocative in what he said. And there are, of course, questions from people in the chat as well, which we will take later on. So I just a couple of ideas. One I thought was when he started, Dr. Lim spoke about what is intelligence. And I think that's very important question because we all have started using the term artificial intelligence, and in intrinsically, inherently, we feel that there's some intelligence in this particular platform. And as he pointed out, intelligence has various complex components, and therefore just using the fact that it is able to access past data and produce responses which seem to be human like cannot actually led us to think that it is intelligence. And people have remarked that there is no I in artificial intelligence. It is just a digital processing of large volumes of data from our past to produce what is certainly useful. We cannot say it's not useful. There is certainly a lot of use in it, but it's not intelligence. It's really reproduction of the past. And I thought that was a very important starting provocation from Dr. Lim. A second thought I picked up from the talk today was how the Singapore education system has owned up the whole AI. Although they are using ChatGPT, they have taken precautions to ensure that the ChatGPT is not controlled by the owner of ChatGPT, which is Microsoft, but they are trying to use it from within the public system. And there is a very conscious, proactive intention to own it and control it and manage it. And I thought this is also an important complex problem that we must face, that in the history of technologies, AI is a digital technology. Digital technology is one of several technologies that we have used. History of humanity tells us that it's perhaps the first time that a technology is almost entirely produced in through the market as an institution, as a for-profit good. Because let's have no illusions that Microsoft or Google or Meta, they are not creating these technologies primarily for our collective good, but primarily it's for them to make profits. And I think the whole idea of how generative AI is currently entirely privately owned is something that should give us all concern. And just when Dr. Lim spoke about the publications of, if I correctly remember his name, Professor Sharples, who talks about how AI can be used, I think it's very important to also bring in this warning that the more you use ChatGPT, the more it is also using you. So at the end of the day, I go back to, uh, you know, D.H. Lawrence, very important question. Are we using the technology, or are we being used by the technology? And therefore, Singapore's attempt to make it situated in the public system is very important. I have one last thought, that is that lot of the focus in the talk was on the economic aspects of use of AI. And of course, it is being produced as a market good. So therefore, it is hoped that it will improve the economies of the world. But essentially, I think from an education point of view, because education is primarily for creating the new society that we all want. So education is primarily aimed at social transformation, socio-political transformation. Therefore, we need to essentially ask the question, in what way can generative AI support social transformation? And in its current form, actually, can it support social transformation through education or not? And I just have a couple of slides, and I'll request Dr. Sajida's permission to just share a couple of slides, which is essentially on what I'm talking now, which is, can we look at what ChatGPT or generative AI, what are the implications of these tools from a socio-political point of view, not merely from an economic point of view? So these are some points. I won't spend time explaining them simply because I don't have any time at all. So the mainstream models of AI in education, and generative AI is also very much a part of that. The imagination of use of generative AI is directly connecting to the student, self-directed learning, personalized learning, reduced role for the teacher, bypassing of the teacher, not having any collective understanding of what exactly this AI is doing when it is allowing us to learn self-directed manner, providing us inputs. What is the basis of these inputs? And we know that in education, curriculum design is a very complex human activity. Not only it's a human activity, it has a social purpose. So every curriculum choice has a socio-political implication. And when ChatGPT suggests a video to be seen, nobody knows on what basis it is saying that. So there's a surrendering of the very important responsibility of curriculum. Dr. Lim mentioned how pedagogy, content, assessment are all being impacted, but we don't know in what direction the generative AI is taking us. And of course, it's proprietary, so we don't know what the code does. So I would like to actually ask Dr. Lim when he says that they have got an arrangement with Microsoft, by which Microsoft won't take the data that the bureaucrats are actually entering into it. In what way can the government verify that? Simply because the code is black box, it's proprietary, and Microsoft can assure you that they won't use it, but there is no way you can ascertain it on an ongoing basis. Of course, it's commercial. And lastly, we all are also worried about the environmental implications of running the current model of ChatGPT or other generative AI because they require huge servers. And we are told now that the big tech companies are actually looking at nuclear power. So these are some of the implications of what I spoke so far. Again, I won't explain each of them. So I would request all of you to just read the points on the slide. I won't explain them. We can discuss it later on if there is time. The use of AI in the current model, in the current paradigm, has extremely critical, important political implications in terms of control over the whole platform by a for-profit company, ceding of that space by public systems, by governments, by state, pedagogical implications in terms of loss of teacher agency and de-skilling of teachers, economic implications, environmental implications, and of course, learning implications, pedagogical implications in terms of self-directed and personalized learning, and how data theft, which is the whole motivation to create AI or platforms is to harvest data from individuals. And in this case, in case of education, it's actually children's data, which makes them extremely vulnerable. These are very important questions that we must keep in mind, which does not mean AI is a problem. The problem is the ownership of AI by for-profit companies. I just want to very quickly talk about an alternative model that my organization, IT for Change, has been exploring. This is not a generative AI. This is the classical AI that Dr. Lim also spoke about. Here, the AI is actually not the typical Microsoft-owned large server-based AI, which is made available as a service to the school. This is AI that is implemented in the school, on a computer in the school. The data remains in the school, the code, the platform, the analytics, everything's remain in the school. It doesn't directly work with the children. The teacher uses the AI and for extremely important, relevant pedagogical purposes. And the code is completely free and open, which means the algorithms and their design is theoretically anybody can understand that. So this is a model that we have conceptualized and we call it the public AI model as an alternative to the typical mainstream proprietary privatized model. This last slide just wanted to talk about how we are actually piloting this public AI model, and schools in Kerala and Karnataka are already piloting that. And this is free and open, so therefore anybody can take it, use it. And it's in the specific area of foundational language learning. And we found that, as everybody says, that language skills have become a very serious issue. They were always an issue. COVID has made the issue much, much worse. And absence of or inadequate capacities in language in children seriously impacts their ability to learn across time. And here the whole use case, as we say, use case is completely driven by the need of the school, the need of the government school, the need of the teacher, the multilingual context of learners. For example, generative AI doesn't handle multilingual context very well. You need to actually interact with it in a particular language. But we know that in a school context, there are children coming from different linguistics backgrounds. And not only the AI analyzes the child's response and shares it with the teacher, but it also provides a repository of OER stories to respond to the differential variable learning needs of the child. So this is just a set of slides I wanted to talk about. But now I'll hand it over to Sajita again for for having questions from the people in the room, and I'll come back to look at the questions on the chat window later on. Thank you, Sajita.
Thank you very much, Guru.